Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning as we discuss what we need to know about patents. So we're going to start off with a brief explanation of who we are, discuss our purpose for today and the agenda. Then I'll introduce our guests. I will ask you, I know everyone has already muted their mics, but just a reminder, if you can keep your mics muted unless you're talking or you have a question. And if you do have a question in the middle of a discussion, feel free to put that in the chat window. We'll be looking at that as well. So my name is Kim Mozingo, and I am with the Maryland Defense Technology Commercialization Center. That is a program of the Maryland Department of Commerce funded by the Federal Economic Development Administration. And what we do, also this morning, Griffin St. Louis and Gary Evans are here from DefTech. Gary is the executive director, Griffin is the program manager, and they're both going to be speaking to us this morning. So what we do is look for businesses that are looking for a technology solution, and we connect them with the DoD labs in the state of Maryland. In a nutshell, that's what we do. But you'll learn more as we go through the morning about what we do and how we help businesses commercialize technology. So we have a variety of different kinds of people on this morning. We have people from biotech and cyber healthcare. We have manufacturers on, big data. We have some people from our federal labs, and as well as a bunch of service providers from Maryland and Delaware. So if you'd like to network with someone or there's someone you'd like to connect with, you can use the chat window. If you're not comfortable putting your email in there, you can add your LinkedIn profile and people can get in touch with you that way. So what I want to do, so today we're going to talk about patents. We're going to talk about how to read a patent, how to consider a patent from the standpoint of manufacturing, and we're going to talk about developing a commercialization plan. So if you're licensing technology from a federal lab, you're going to need to present a commercialization plan to this, and all of this flows together. We've covered all kinds of topics so far on product development, funding product development, and all of these center around the work that we do with DefTech, which is helping companies take technologies to market. So our goal for today then is to help companies acquire the knowledge that they need to reduce risk in licensing intellectual property. We're going to focus on what businesses might think about prior to licensing, which begins with understanding how to value a patent. So we're going to walk through that process. To kick off our conversation and kind of set the stage for the rest of our discussion, we're first going to consider what DefTech looks for in a business that wishes to partner with a DoD lab. And licensing is certainly a form of partnership. So people approach patents in many different ways. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there. As we look through, what does it take for a business to license technology, we'll move into talking specifically about the patent, and we've selected a patent for review that we're going to use throughout the day as an example. And we're going to talk about understanding how to value IP. Once you have an idea of how to read the patent, how to understand what you're looking at and what you're looking for while you're reading a patent, we'll switch into talking about the manufacturing perspective, what you need to consider from a manufacturing point of view. After you decide that you're going to license the technology, as I mentioned before, the lab that you're licensing from is going to want to know that you're prepared to take that technology to market, and will expect you to demonstrate that with a strong commercialization plan. So in our discussion today, we're going to look at a technology that's available to license from the Army Research Lab. It's a solid state switch power emulator, and I did put a link to that patent in the chat window. So if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to do that. So again, to understand what companies need in order to be successful licensing IP, DefTech connects businesses to the resources that are available in the DoD labs in Maryland. And much of our work is focused on helping companies and technology transfer professionals engage in mutually beneficial relationships, ones that help the companies grow their business and helps the DoD to meet their mission-driven needs. So part of our process includes developing an in-depth assessment of the company we're working with, which does a couple of things. It helps us understand who the company is and what they need from a technology perspective. And it helps us and them gauge their readiness to license. So today, again, we're going to start off looking at the kind of big picture. What are we looking for in a company? So when we do this, our program manager, Griffin St. Louis, has been doing this for a number of years. He's very, very good at it. He has excellent relationships with the labs and is fantastic at looking for the right technology. So generally, we start off looking at what is the company's background? How are they positioned for success? And Griffin has held more than 50 client companies. He's looked at 50 client companies, more than 50, to help them prepare for interactions with the lab. So thank you for being here, Griffin. Let's start with your initial contact with a company. So when you're first meeting a CEO or a CXO, what are you looking for, and what kind of questions are you asking them?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Kim. As mentioned, the cornerstone of the service that DefTech provides is connecting companies with the resources available through the Department of Defense labs. And from that first conversation forward, generally the first question I like to ask is, what kind of products do you offer? Followed by, what customers and markets and industries might you serve? And those are really just to kind of get a better and deeper understanding of, what the company's outlook is and what their developmental capabilities are. And carrying that forward, something that we then might ask or assess is, in what fields of engineering or science do you have a primary focus, or what's your background experience, just so we can start to kind of take the conversation forward and really understand what that company's capabilities are and what they might be interested in from a product development standpoint, or rather what they might be capable of developing from a product development standpoint. So taking that one step further, the next question I might ask someone is, do you have a research and development team, or at least access to one? Because generally when we're working with companies, in order to assess their readiness to license and commercialize technology, we're going to make sure that they can license, or they're in a position to license and develop it from both an expertise standpoint and from a capability standpoint. And typically, to gain a better understanding of what that might look like, I'll want to in more detail understand what some of their research and development objectives are for their company. So are they looking to solve some technical gaps in a current product? Are they looking to optimize something that already exists? Or are they seeking to leverage IP in order to add value to an existing product? Or are they trying to create something totally new and are looking for some sort of intellectual property foothold? And these are all important things to consider, because this is going to really be of value when connecting them to the necessary resources with DoD labs. But to kind of bring that full circle, typically, if we have this conversation with someone, we really want to understand in depth what they're doing. Say, for example, someone has a technical focus area and they say material science. Typically, that in itself is specific, but it's not specific enough, because when we're really considering patents and research, more specific is better. So just material science in itself might not be quite as granular as we like. So we'll just continue the line of questioning, say, what specific technical areas are you looking at? For example, maybe you are interested in material science, but particularly polymers, probably conductive materials, composites, that's a little bit more granular, and that's something that we can start to dig into.
So at that point, you have a pretty good idea of what their current needs and capabilities are. And I know there's a lot more detail that we go into. We want to understand, their infrastructure, and we're looking at their capacity to be able to actually commercialize a product. Do they have the right team? Do they have the right facilities, or do they need to enter into a CRADA, Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, which we talked about 2 weeks ago? So it's really just getting an in-depth picture of that company, of what their assets are and what the problem that they're looking to solve. So DefTech uses what we call an IP matchmaking process, where we search through nearly 2,000 patents, that are available for license from the DoD labs in Maryland. So how do you even begin the process of looking for potential IP for a solution? You've done the background, you've gotten to know the company, you certainly know what the labs are capable of, and you have great relationships with the tech transfer offices. So what is your next step?
Well, right, like you said, to kind of coalesce what we've learned from that first conversation, and decide what the company's research and development objectives are. That can really structure and give me a clear line of sight forward as to what the company might find the most helpful with respect to working with the lab, whether it be a CRADA that we discussed a few weeks ago, or whether it be finding a piece of intellectual property or a patent to license. So typically from that conversation about research and development objectives, or what the company's experience, capabilities, and expertise are, the first thing that I consider is, okay, based on our conversation and based on what fields of research or what fields of science, what kind of products they're developing specifically, is there a lab that has interests, or is there a lab that has capabilities that are very similar or might overlap? Say someone is, for sake of relevancy, with respect to the patent that we're looking at today from ARL, let's say someone is looking to develop something to test electrical equipment. Well, ARL has several technologies and several facilities specifically geared toward that kind of thing. So that might be the first place that I start to look with respect to finding a patent or finding a research team or connecting them with appropriate technology transfer professionals. But then moving forward into deeper into the IP matchmaking process, we've narrowed it down to ARL. Well, then we'll go to our patent database and individually assess patents that are relevant to electrical testing equipment or fault testing or any kind of like conducting equipment, using technical keywords that we would have otherwise gleaned from the research and development objectives of the company down to a granular level. And so from there, what I'll do is make a first pass through. Say, okay, based on the title, does it sound like it could be somewhat relevant to what they're interested in? And pull out as many as are relevant as I can. From there, make a second round of cuts. Read the abstracts in detail and distill out the irrelevant technologies, and down till we have something that looks more like a short list that's a bit more manageable for a company to consider. And then finally, what I'll do is I'll read through all the remaining abstracts in full text to kind of further refine the list down to technologies that might be of interest. And Mark, who's going to speak next, is going to give you guys a really detailed and a high-level understanding of what that entails and kind of what to look for from your own perspective in order to glean necessary information from a patent. But the point of this is to ultimately save businesses time and effort on behalf of sifting through 2,000 technologies from DoD that are contained within this database. And that's something that that we're willing to put the time into, and also to not only identify the field, but get it down to a very specific level to what we feel might be relevant to the companies themselves.
So thank you for that. And we talk about this as a process, but we've internally struggled to describe this because there's a lot of iteration, there's a lot of looping. If you find a technology that you think is of interest, sometimes that helps the company understand what they don't want. And then you can go in another direction and find what they do want. So sometimes I know there's back and forth with that. And I know you enjoy keeping up with the latest technology that the labs are working on, and sometimes come across interesting technology. And then we move in the opposite direction. If a lab partner approaches us, say, we have this technology, we're really trying to push it out the door, do you know anyone? Then we've got a great list of clients and potential clients that we've been working with and have developed relationships with. And so thank you for that. I know that this morning we had you find the patent that we're going to be discussing today. Um, so that's incredibly helpful, and that kind of sets the stage. So there's nothing that we do that is going to necessarily exclude someone from working with us or working with a lab. If we find a company has needs, then we work with our network of service providers and other experts and put them in touch with the people that they need to get in touch with. But once you've made that decision to license, it can be challenging to figure out propose it. How do you propose fees in your plan, and then how do you negotiate for that license? So we are going to talk about that on June 16th, same time, same location, different link, but the same location. So let's return just for a moment to the topic of what DefTech is and why the Maryland Department of Commerce set this program up. Our purpose is to help businesses make use of the extraordinary lab resources that are available in the state of Maryland, particularly the DoD labs. But we're home to 78 federal labs. That's more than any other state. And most of those state-of-the-art facilities, the highly sought-after expertise, the cutting-edge intellectual property that's available, it's available to help businesses grow. They're not getting patents just for the heck of it. They're getting patents, and business gets to license those patents and use them. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I apologize for the technical glitches. If there are specific topics that you'd like to see us cover, you can add them to the chat now, or you can email us. You can get in touch with us on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm not going to say Twitter. Contact us on LinkedIn. You can email info@deftechmd.com. And we will see you back here, hopefully in 2 weeks. In the meantime, let's all look out for each other, respect each other. Let's stay home and stay safe. Wear your masks when you're out and wash your hands. Thank you.